So let's talk about RFK. So poll comes out. RFK Jr.'s independent run could pull more from Trump than Biden. So a recent Quinnipiac University poll indicates that RFK Jr.'s potential independent run for 2024 presidency could disproportionately affect Republicans rather than Democrats. Notably, the poll shows that Republicans have a notably higher favorability rating for Kennedy, with 48% having a favorable view compared to only 14% on the Democrat side. So who would he take votes away from if he were to run as an independent?
Well, I think definitely it would be more votes from Trump, and that's why the Democrats forced his hand into leaving the primary. They completely were rigging it and cheating it, and they were going to start making him pay for the primary if he wanted to have one. So he had no choice but to run independent, and the reason why the Democrats wanted him to do that, they forced his hand, is because they think he's going to take more votes from Trump, and I think he will, because a lot of people who want to vote for Bobby Kennedy, their second choice would be Trump. That nobody's going to vote for Bobby Kennedy. Their second choice would be Biden. Nobody. So, but I think what Bobby Kennedy's actually going to do is bring people who don't vote, which is the biggest voting bloc, people who don't normally vote. They're going to see a reason to vote again because the guy's really anti-establishment. And I think that the independents also, which is the second biggest voting bloc, are going to be drawn to him. So I think that he might take votes from Trump, but I think he's going to energize people who don't normally vote to come out and vote.
I'm a little split on this one. When the story came out, I actually said I don't think it'll be from Trump because, Phil Labonte on the show said in the most eloquent way that Trump's bottom is solid. He's not his voter base at 44%. They're never going anywhere, no matter what. And the poll showing that Republicans have a higher favorability of RFK is true because he's anti-establishment. Doesn't mean they're going to vote for him. However, that being said, I hear from a lot of people that they're very, very pissed off that Donald Trump backed Fauci, didn't fire him, and all the COVID stuff. And if RFK's principal position is the anti-COVID stuff, Trump's still coming out and saying, that he saved 100 million lives. He's told his liberal friend said this, and he likes what he did. I'm like, you might actually end up seeing people be like, I'll vote for RFK Jr. It's hard to know for sure. We talked with Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, and I think the general assessment was Trump will suffer from this, but RFK will likely split more Democrats. I think that's what they're looking at. And so it may end up with a situation where you have Biden slightly below Trump and Trump winning a state like Maine with 43% or something.
But
hard to know for sure, though.
Doesn't just show how far left the Democrats have gone. Well, you're talking about the nephew of JFK, the Democratic president, greatest of all time, right? The son of Bobby Kennedy, murdered, right? Now, 48% of Republicans identify with him. What's the number? 14% of Democrats. He is no longer even beloved. The Kennedys are no longer beloved in the sacred Democratic Party. Well, he's now on the Republican side of things. This is crazy.
I was going to say, because it's a cult. Because the Democrat, whatever their favorability is march in lockstep.
That's right.
RFK Jr. was like moderate. He's on gun control issues, right? A lot of Trump supporters are coming on being like, have you looked at him? He's a liberal. I'm like, well, of course he's a liberal. But he's anti-establishment, so now you like him? That's what it really is. The Democrats are a cult, in my opinion.
Well, that's what you called it Blue Anon?
Yeah. So
they say this is a Big Tent party. It's a Big Tent party. Yeah, as long as you just kind of get in line. And this is why the Republicans are so divisive, so they say, is because people have different opinions. All right, we're going to argue with Matt Gaetz, Eric McCarthy, or it's a Democratic Party. All right, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren. All right, everyone get here. I'm behind Biden now. Well, and that's just how it works.
There's this weird phenomenon now that I've stayed true to what I thought used to make me a liberal and a lefty, which was freedom of speech, my body, my choice, bodily autonomy, anti-authoritarianism, and anti-war. Yeah. And now all those things have been turned in. They call you a right-winger for that. If you're anti-war, you're a right-winger. You're a Putin puppet. It's the craziest thing. So there's been this shift in the parties. So now when you say that the Democrats have gone farther left, I say they didn't. They've gone actually further authoritarian and establishment, and there's nothing left or liberal about the Democratic Party anymore. They're corporatists, and they've tricked people into thinking that you're actually a liberal or a lefty if you vote for those corporatists.
Jimmy, would you break that down, the four things you said that made you a classic liberal, and how counterintuitive it is today?
Well, it used to be...
You said my body, my choice, freedom of speech.
But that's not classic liberalism.
Okay.
That is
Jimmy's talking about traditional liberalism.
Okay.
But yeah, continue. I'll jump in after.
So yeah, I just always thought what made me a lefty lefty was that I was anti-war, I was anti-authoritarianism, I was for freedom of speech, absolute across the board, and bodily autonomy, my body, my choice. That's all out the window. The Democrats have all flipped on all those things. They're for censorship. They're super pro-war. They're against your body, your own choice. It's your body, my choice.
Well, especially on COVID. Maybe not
that's
so
what I'm
much
talking
with
about.
abortion,
Just
though.
that's the only thing that they think Well, I've talked to people about the vaccine mandates, and I go, "What about my body, my choice?" And literally, they will say, "Well, that only goes for abortion." It's like, what? They go, "Yeah, because abortion isn't contagious." Yeah, but I think your stupidity is. Because you know what is contagious? The COVID-19 virus. You know what doesn't stop it from being contagious? That vaccine you want to mandate because you've been propagandized to think so. But people are. That's another thing. You brought it up earlier. I wanted to piggyback on it. Is that at some point people stop taking the boosters, right? So at some point they stop listening to Dr. Fauci and CNN and MSNBC and Fox, and they stop listening to the garbage from the FDA and the CDC. So at some point they realized, hey, I think they're lying. Well, people, they don't tell you that the two heads of in the FDA, the head of the vaccine department, the two heads that were there for 30 years quit over the booster. So it wasn't okay for them. But if I say something, I'm called a Trumper, a right-winger, a white supremacist, if I go along with the same people who had the vaccine department at the FDA when they resigned. So anyway, that's a long answer to your question, but those are the things. So now everything's flipped, and now the only anti-war voices are coming from the Republicans. They're for freedom of speech. They're for bodily autonomy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, I've stayed consistent, and because I've stayed consistent, and the Democrats have become authoritarian maniacs, pro-censorship, pro-war, then if I'm against that, you're now a right-winger. It's nuts.
So classical liberal typically refers to the founding fathers. It's a more libertarian view. It's considered to be center-right libertarianism. And then traditional liberal, they're very, very, very similar, but that's considered the center-left liberal. 20 years ago, when I'm growing up, my family are all what would be described as social or traditional liberals, meaning we were upset about racism. We were upset about prejudice. We were upset about these social issues, and we had a very liberal perspective. But social liberals, which are social and traditional liberals, or Democrats 10, 20 years ago, believed we can probably help solve some of these problems if we address them properly. But now you end up with the culture war today, because what do we end up seeing? They're advocating for racial segregation. We're seeing these the libraries in Seattle where it's like what is it? POC DEI meeting, non-POC meetings. Yes. In Dearborn, Michigan, they did these digital cafes where there was one for white people, one not for white people, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I call that reactionary, right? They try to call us reactionaries and right wing. Reactionary is a reference to those who tried to maintain the status quo in the French Revolution. So if my family, literally my parents, my mom grows up before Loving v. Virginia, when interracial marriage was illegal, and before civil rights, and they had to lie about the relationship of my grandfather and my grandmother, because if people found out, it was actually a felony and they had to flee several states. Then the law changes. Loving v. Virginia comes down. There's a ruling. Hey, guess what? You can be of any race and marry if you want. It's kind of crazy to think that was illegal. It's called miscegenation. And then what happens? You get someone like Derek Brown, the critical race theorist, who argues that school segregation, plus E.V. Ferguson, all this stuff, he wants the segregation. He wanted it. And that's the modern cultural left. So that's a huge component for me. I'm like, I actually thought it was a good thing that for one of the first times in the history of humanity, we were like, it doesn't matter what your race is. And now they're trying to rewind that clock.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.